to the FNZ 90 Plus Free podcast, where free football supporters take a look into the dressing room, chatting to former professional footballers about their experiences on and off the pitch. I'm your host, Ashley Simons. Tonight, I'm joined by football's finest collector of antique shirts, Mark Beck. And for some reason, I seem to think this is a strange obsession myself, but our very own collector of caps and hats, Mark Tuxford. Tux, was it before or after your hair disappeared you started collecting caps?
No, it was well before. I actually started collecting hats when I was probably about 10 or 11, I'd say. So I've got quite a good collection of hats.
How many do you reckon you've got?
I don't know, well over 100.
Where do you put them then?
On my head, mate.
On your head.
Bex, why don't you give us a little bit of background on tonight's shirt, a little depiction for those who are unable to watch this episode?
Yeah, so I've got a FC St. Pauli shirt on. So for all you football hipsters, you'll know who that is. And for all you normal football fans, you probably have no idea who they are. Second division German side from Bundesliga 2, I believe it's called. I think that's the right term. But yeah, a bit of an interesting club. If you haven't heard of them, I'd recommend doing some research about them.
Nice one. So a quick reminder for those watching or listening tonight, our show tonight, make sure you follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name it, we've got it. All the details are in the description. Also, do not forget to tell a mate the only way the news spreads is if you get them involved. Tonight, we have a player who has played in the Premier League, Championship, Leagues 1 and 2, making a career total of 550 appearances, as well as representing Jamaica on the international stage. It's Jamal Campbell-Ryce. Jamal, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm great. Thanks, chaps, for having me. Appreciate it.
Good to hear, mate. Good to hear. So, Jamal, you won't be familiar with the format, so I'll give you a quick rundown of how it works. Just imagine you're in a pub with three blokes you've never met before, and we need to know every detail about your career. Is that okay?
Brilliant. What, is that including birds as well? Or?
Mate, if you want to go there, we can talk about it. Yeah, right, decent. So, Tux will kick us off with a question. We'll go from there.
Brilliant. Jamal, first and foremost, thanks very much for coming on. As Ash said, we like to start these interviews off with a trip down memory lane, really, in terms of your love of football from an early age. So I guess my first question would be to you: what were your first childhood memories watching football or supporting a team as a youngster?
Growing up, like my old man, he was a big Man United fan. Unfortunately, but for some reason I chose my own path, and unfortunately again I followed Tottenham. Obviously everybody got the Spurs jokes down them and all the rest of it, but yeah, I was a massive fan. I just loved players like Ginola and Klinsmann and all that from that era, Anderton and Sheringham, and I thought they were fantastic, and yeah, I just grew up loving them and watching them.
Yeah. So I think it's sort of fair to say, so from those sort of memories you sort of touch upon, that led to you having the career that you had really as a professional footballer. So, I mean, sort of take me through your time as an academy product. I know your first club was Charlton, but I don't know if you was in the Charlton Academy or a different academy, but talk to me through your essentially your academy days.
No, well, I actually got scouted by Millwall and signed schoolboy forms there, and actually signed YTS forms there as well. And but about 6-7 months into my YT forms, Charlton come in for me. I think they paid a nominal fee for myself, and ended up going across the another part of South London. But it was fantastic for me. Obviously, I went there under at the time the academy manager was Mick Brown, and it was Mick Beard that brought me in, and it was just brilliant for my development. Although I'd only been in the building at Millwall a short period, I just definitely thought that the learning and the coaching methods and that Charlton were instilling in me were definitely coming out in my game. And I think everybody knows, or those that don't know about Charlton's academy, have a look, because it is fantastic. The products that they have coming through year in, year out, they've got players that they're churning out every single year.
So from the players that obviously you just mentioned there, with Charlton players coming through, and even at Millwall, was there any sort of players that you can remember that have gone on to have like really good careers, or that you may have even played with later into your career?
I think the most obvious one for me was Scott Parker. Every time that I went over, and I was obviously as a youngster going over and training with the first team, he just stood out for me like a sore thumb. I've never met a more complete player that could literally do everything. He had the touch of a foreigner. He had vision. He could run all day. He wasn't quick, but he was sharp. He was skillful, could get out of positions, but he also had that bite. That obviously in his career, everybody's seen him being that holding midfielder, that number 4, you could say. And he used to just dictate games. And honestly, he's just one player that throughout my career, like in training, I've seen unbelievable trainers, but in games and in training, he just gave 110%. If you can, there's no such thing, but there was that with Scotty.
Yeah, I certainly remember Scott Parker from his early sort of Charlton days, when he was a youngster, obviously an attacking sort of central midfielder, and then obviously towards the end of his career when he was at sort of West Ham and Tottenham, he was very much the kind of sort of Michael Carrick player that we kind of know as, and obviously went on to play for England. So for you personally as well, we went on to represent sort of around 15 clubs during your professional career, obviously starting off at Charlton. So despite playing for a number of teams across the country, you stayed at the top of your game for a good while, but only averaged around a season or maybe 2 seasons at a club. Why do you think you couldn't particularly pin down potentially just one club as a place you could call home, or stay at a club for more than 1 or 2 seasons?
Do you know what? I've had this question quite a lot in interviews recently, obviously towards the back end of my career and stuff. And for me, it was purely I'm not one of those players that could ever just sit down and pick up my money. I just wanted to play football, and if there could be various reasons why I come in, a manager signed me, that manager got sacked, or I got injured and another player come in better. Like for example, I remember I was at Bristol City, absolutely flying, and then we signed Albert Adomah and Yannick Bolasie. Now them 2 players are Premier League players, so like if you got them 2 playing in front of you, what would you do? Just sit down and pick up your money and just be happy to be at the place, or do you go and seek pastures new? And for me, that was always my thing. From a very young age, I always said to myself, I can't say to myself that I've made it as a professional footballer until I reached over 500 career games, league games. And I've done that. And I don't think I would have done that if I would have just been happy to be a part of the furniture or a club or whatever. And it's just that hunger and that desire to always want to play. I don't care what any footballer says, Monday to Friday, you can have a laugh and a joke, but on a Saturday, if your name's not picked on the team sheet, your head's gone, you're pissed off, you want to play. And I was no different. If I weren't in that team, I was knocking the manager's door and say, look, do you not rate me? Do you not want me? If the answer is no, then that's fine. I'm big enough and ugly enough to know that that's how the world works. That's how football works. And just let me go and find a career elsewhere. And that's what I did. I just, throughout my career, it was literally play me or let me go. And that's always been my mentality.
Yeah, I think that's something obviously that's probably in modern day football, especially with youngsters coming through and then getting picked up by the bigger clubs, and kids sort of going there and not really experiencing first team football properly or whatever else, and then obviously just picking up that wage packet at the end of it. So
it's like you said there though, like you almost can't win because like you just asked that question there, some people have been called a journeyman and all the rest of it, and you get asked, why couldn't you pin down like 1 club or 2 clubs or whatever, and then people get battered for like not wanting to go out and get first team football and happy to sit. So like it's a tough one to balance, but for me it was just always that hunger and desire to play.
Yeah, I suppose going back to that sort of question, in terms of calling a club your home, is it difficult to really pick just one, or was there maybe just a kind of a special moment in your career where you thought you were at home at a club?
I'd say for different reasons. Barnsley, absolutely loved it there. That was probably because of the manager that I was under, Simon Davey, signed me, and he literally just gave me a free rein to just go and express myself, and he was brilliant for me. Just gave me the confidence to go and play free, really. Once that was really why I loved it there. Bristol City was probably the first time in my life that I'd ever thought about actually residing in a part of the country outside of London. Fantastic city, brilliant. Absolutely loved it there. A little bit disappointed that I didn't stay there a little bit longer. I loved the dressing room. That was probably like the club I'd probably say I was closest to saying, yeah, like this is a club I can definitely call home.
So how much does it put emphasis on the fact that if you're, a player from, say London, like you are, I mean, going all the way to sort of Bristol, I mean, how much is that effect on a player when he actually moves to a club and, the new surroundings and stuff like that? Is it really that kind of detrimental if it doesn't go well, especially, if you're not playing well and then you've got to go home and you're not feeling too happy? I mean, what's your sort of favours towards that? I mean, was it always very much London that you wanted to stay with?
Yeah, but my 90% of my career has been outside of London.
Yeah.
So like I've not really had that pleasure of. It's not until I think it was obviously at the beginning when I was at Charlton, and then when I was at Southend for a couple of years, and then Barnet at the very end of my career. But when you go to places like Bristol, like it's a beautiful city. So being away from home when you're in another beautiful city, you can half accept it. It was tough when I was younger and I first signed for Rotherham. That was really tough, moving up north for the first time. I found that really tough, and football I had to really get my head down and make sure that I played really well, because obviously it was a very good club at the time, but I just wasn't comfortable there, and I just wanted to play as well as I could to possibly potentially get another move.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know for a fact that my colleagues Bex and Ash have got some really good questions relating to specific sort of moments in your career at specific teams. But before I come on to that, I mean, having looked back over your career and then obviously watching you play at some clubs as well. I remember one sort of memory when you was playing for Rotherham, and I think you was at Portman Road against Ipswich. It was a Tuesday night. I think he was completely on fire that evening.
I got clapped off, didn't I?
That's right. Yeah. So I was just about to come on to that. So
yeah.
I think I speak on behalf of everyone that was in the ground that night. I think the chants were sign him up. I think it was. Is that something that's happened a lot in your career? As like a bit of a tricky winger. And did you kind of like take it quite literally, seeing as you've represented quite a lot of clubs?
Obviously that was my game, wasn't it? Like when you're a winger and you're on fire, you can feel it, and that's what the crowd want to see, isn't it?
Yeah.
They want to see flair and pace and skill and defenders getting tormented. And I think I was playing against Fabian Wilness that night. And it's funny actually, because I remember my gaffer actually took me. We got spanked that night, but I actually had a good game, and he took me off. And obviously I wasn't happy. I walked down the tunnel, which at the time wasn't the best thing to do, because obviously it looks disrespectful to the rest of the players and the staff and all the rest of it. But I was literally fuming, and actually had a Barney with the gaffer after the game and said, like, I was the best player on the park. Why are you taking me off? And but yeah, I do vividly remember that game.
Well, so the next sort of spell I want to talk about is your time at Southend, and quite controversially or quite funnily, you were at Colchester at the same time on loan during both sides' promotion campaigns, which I believe you got to go on both promotion open top buses, I believe, as well. Was that quite a surreal feeling? I've never sort of known that, especially arch rivals like Colchester and Southend. What was the feeling like, sort of being in both dressing rooms at that time?
It's mad, because I get asked this question a hell of a lot as well. I actually didn't go on both open top buses.
Oh, you didn't?
I only went on the Southend. So basically, tying in a little bit with my last point, when I signed for Rotherham, and wanted to get a move down south. I ended up signing for Southend. It was my old manager, Paul Brush, was the assistant manager at Southend under Steve Tilson. Anyway, they wanted to sign me. They was after me for a while. Ended up getting it done, but it was a loan move initially because they couldn't agree a fee. So went there, and openly and honestly, like my first 6 months that I was at Southend, didn't pull up any trees. I think it was a little bit of the anxiety of is the deal going to go through and all the rest of it, and blah 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 blah, not hearing anything, and both chairmans digging their heels in. So yeah, I didn't really set the world alight, and my loan came to an end. Still couldn't agree a fee, and I was a little bit in limbo. Didn't want to go back up to Rotherham, so I was just training at Southend, and my agent just called me literally out of the blue and just said, "Oh, Colchester have come in for you on loan as well." And at this time, Southend and Colchester were 1 and 2 in the league, and so I said, "Yeah, let's just get it done." Obviously, ended up going to Colchester. And both sides getting promoted. But in the end, the deal got agreed for me to go to Southend. So I don't think it'd have looked right. Obviously, them being arch rivals, me going on the Colchester open top bus when I'm actually signing for Southend. I don't think the Southend fans would have appreciated that. So it was just a Southend one. I definitely got my medal though. Made sure I got that.
That's the main thing. That's the main thing. And going on to your time at Southend, there's a game that I think a lot of football fans can remember was that 1-0 victory over Manchester United in the Carling Cup. And from what I've read, I remember everyone remembers Freddie Eastwood's free kick, but you had Gabriel Heinz absolutely on toast, and we all know how good Heinz things go on toast. You were on fire. So how did you feel? That result. What did that mean to you at the time? What was the feeling in the dressing room after that game? I'm sure it was a memorable night afterwards.
Oh, there's nothing better. I mean, I've been lucky enough in my career to have a few cup upsets and all the rest of it, and they're brilliant. That one was equally as sweet. Obviously, Freddie's fantastic free kick, and just the whole evening, because everybody thought that they was going to put out their reserve, so to speak, but they brought down a very, very strong squad, and we gave as good as we got. Obviously, we was on a back foot for a lot of the game, but one thing that we had in that era under Steve Tilson at Southend then was a lot of team spirit and resilience, and that game epitomised that, and went 1-0 up, and we just fought for each other, and it was brilliant. And obviously, I can imagine after the game, everybody was absolutely buzzing.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, you've been on many a cup run in your career. I remember, I think the Sheffield United cup run under Nigel Clough. You took out QPR when they're in the Premier League, got all the way to the semi-finals. That's something that you've said just earlier. I think there's opportunities where I've seen you, like we've said, you've absolutely tore teams apart. And when a manager's come in for you, you've got your move, and then unfortunately for you, that manager's moved on. Is that sort of would be your biggest frustration, that you've maybe not had the crack at been having more minutes in the Premier League? Is that when you were at your sort of your highest, there's been opportunities where managers moved on and not really been able to work with you as much as you'd like?
Yeah, absolutely. But been very frustrating times. But that's football and that's the world. Unfortunately, you got to strike while the iron's hot. And I remember when I was at Barnsley, 2 occasions actually, QPR come in for me. They offered good money, and I remember the one that really upset me was when I was at Barnsley. Reading come in for me and put in. I mean, considering that Barnsley only paid, I think it was 60 grand or 70 grand for me from Southend. Reading put a 1.2 million bid in for me, and it got turned down. And the managers at the time, who was I going to get to replace Jamal Campbell-Ryce? And I was like, well, that's not my problem. It's my opportunity to move back down south and all the rest of it. And these are the key moments in your career where you look back at, they could be life-changing, not only career-changing, life-changing, but it's just the way the world, nothing's easy. Otherwise, everybody will be doing it. But I do look at those defining moments, and there is a huge lot of frustration and disappointment because that season Reading got promoted, and they ended up signing. Don't know if you remember him from Coventry, J Tab instead, and
Yeah.
and obviously he was at Reading for years and done really well. So yeah, frustrating, but it's how it goes, isn't it?
But I want you to cast your mind back to your time at Barnsley, and the 3rd of May 2009, you scored the winner against Plymouth Argyle that kept Barnsley in the Championship. Now, you've been part of, sides that have been promoted as well.
Mm.
What is better? What is the better feeling, being promoted or scoring the winner that keeps a side in the league?
That's a really good question. That I think the sense of satisfaction, like that was a really, really tough season, because from the opening day of the season, like we were favourites to go down and all the rest of it. Then we went on the cup run, and obviously the cup run like sugar-coated the league and all the rest of it. And I'll never forget, after we lost to Cardiff at Wembley in the semi-final, just how defeated the whole dressing room looked. We almost looked relegated, and it was funny because after that game, I think that game was on a Sunday, that Cardiff game, and then we had, I think we was playing Watford at Vicarage Road on the Wednesday night, and we was in a relegation zone. And literally, to be fair, I'd be lying if I sat here and told you that I wasn't thinking, shit, we're down, because the teams that we had coming up, like it was almost looking like that we were definitely, like, we were doomed. And we went to Vicarage Road, and the gaffer, like, fair play to him, completely changed the team, and that was the first time I'd ever played centre mid, and he'd gone from me being an out and out wide player to putting me in the centre of the park. And when he named the team, it was weird because he named like 3 wide players, and everyone was thinking, what's going on here? But he hadn't said the formation. And at the end of his team talk or whatever, I said to him, I said, Gaffer, what formation are we playing? And he said, and I was like, well, where am I playing? And he was like, centre mid. And I just gave him this bemused look, and he was like, what are you looking at me like that for? He was like, you're our best player, you're our best ball handler, you got the most confidence, like, why can't you play in there? And we ended up beating Watford at Vicarage Road, and they were like top of the league. Ended up beating them, I think it was 3-1 or 3-2. Remember KODODJ, he absolutely battered Daddy Shooter for 90 minutes. And then obviously following on, leading up to that just gave us the confidence and the impetus. And then we ended up going to Plymouth, and remember John Macken setting me up to score that goal. And I just think the satisfaction, I think that actually gave me more satisfaction than getting promoted, because from the very beginning of that year, we was just down to be relegated, and everyone was saying that we were definitely going down and all the rest of it. And against all odds, we just pulled it out of the bag, plus having that cup run.
Yeah. And obviously that summer, I think you touched on this with Mark, but that summer you must have had loads of interest. I mean, you just escaped relegation, but you yourself, you had 9 goals in 41 appearances. We'd probably say that's the prime of your career. Did anyone come in? Was that the summer where QPR came in?
No, that's when Reading started sniffing. But like, it was funny as well, because to be fair to Barnsley, they really looked after me. I signed a new contract every year that I was there. So I signed 3 new deals in 3 years, and I loved it there. They were brilliant for me, well-run club and all the rest of it. I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't allow me to leave, but like, I don't hold no grudges, because literally that is football. And if everybody dug their heels in football and force moves and all the rest of it, then there wouldn't be controversy and all the rest of it. And we all love deadline day, but not all moves happen. So
yeah,
that was unfortunate for me. It's just the way it goes.
So I just want to touch on something you said earlier. I mean, back in 2018, the Sun released a headline labelling you as the ultimate journeyman. Would you say that, given your professionalism in your career, you'd take that as a bit of an insult?
Some would, but like I gave them the same explanation that I gave you. Like, I have no problem being a journeyman. If, like, look, listen, if you're my gaffer and like you're not having me, like, what am I gonna? And I got 2 years left on my contract. Like, what am I gonna do? Just sit there and like pick up my dough and play resi football and all the rest of it? I mean, Like I was reserve captain of Charlton for 2 years. Like when I was like 17 and 18. Like I've done that. I've done the travelling around the country with Charlton's first team and being on the bench 1 week, and then being in the stands for the next 6-7 weeks, and then being on the bench and then not travelling. Like it's all a load of crap. Like I literally just want to play football. And like I said, from a young kid, I'll tell you what it was. When I was at Charlton, when I was 17, I went on loan to Leyton Orient, and from that moment on, I was like, I am not gonna be one of them players that just play resis or a sub. I need to play first team football. That's the best thing that ever happened to me. Went out at 17 and got beaten up, and I was brilliant on that loan move, and it just turned a boy into a man. And but going back to your point, being a journeyman doesn't faze me one bit. Like I'd rather be a journeyman and played 550 league games and being an international footballer, and my kids have got like all these memories of me and like programs and shirts and see me all around the country and playing at all these stadiums, rather than like daddy playing at 7 o'clock on a Monday night in a reserve game. You know what I mean? Like for me, like they might find it like funny or weird that like I've never settled, but for me settling was playing 550 games.
Yeah, that's really fair. And to be honest, we've spoken to players, you know, previously on this channel who have stayed too long, personally, have stayed at clubs for too long, and that has affected their career. But that fair play to you, mate. That's top notch what you've done there. Moving on to obviously your international career. I mean, no mean feat, but you've played 18 times for Jamaica, and you know that must have been brilliant. Just firstly, talk us through your first call up, how it all came about.
It was brilliant actually. Like at the time, it was funny because England was sniffing around me. England under 19s, or it might have been under 20s. One of them. And there was these times like I was doing well at Charlton, been on loan like a few times, and obviously I've done a few magazine pieces like the boys a bit special and all the rest of it. So there's a little bit of hype around me at the time, and things were going well, and I was believing my own hype a little bit, and then I just got a random, I think it was an email from the club, just pulled me up and said, oh, we got an email from the Jamaica Federation saying that you've been invited. And I think my debut was at the Majatski, funny enough, going back to Reading, against Australia. I think the game we ended up drawing 0-0, and I come on for about 5-10 minutes, and it was brilliant. And then after that, I played a couple of under 23s games, done really well in that, and then I was back into the senior fold. And representing your country, there's not an accolade better than that for me. Some other players might differ, but for me that was just singing the national anthem before every game and meeting up and knowing that you're being selected as one of the best in your country to represent them in World Cup qualifiers and all the rest of it, was fantastic. A little bit disappointing that at times the Jamaican Federation was a little bit unprepared and unprofessional in the way they'd done things, but it comes with the game, I suppose. But like I said, playing in them games in the stadium, and it was brilliant.
So how would you say the game differed in comparison to your experiences in the Football League?
Well, obviously, like Jamaica, like it's a country that's like well behind England in terms of quality and all the rest of it. So I think without being disrespectful to my own nation, that's just an obvious fact. And just the professionalism at times, going to any football club, football league club, like everything's like seemed to be done right, and obviously finances like determine that a lot. And Jamaica do struggle financially at times in football and all the rest of it, so you have to take that into consideration. But like I said, like representing your country, I don't think there's a bigger accolade I could have.
No, so you were playing with the likes of Ricardo Fuller, Ricardo Gardner, Jermaine Johnson. They're just a few of the players I can pick out. I mean, they were all well-established, English-based players at the time. You must have had a right laugh.
Oh, honestly, it was fantastic. Sometimes in training, I would just stand on the outskirts and just admire some of the quality and like the pace and the power of them. and sometimes it was breathtaking. Just a shame that we haven't stepped up and gone a little bit further in terms of our development and stuff. But hopefully, with the new rising crop of Jamaicans coming through, like they can do that. But definitely, like some of the players that we had, like Ricardo Fuller, like I've never played with a player so strong and so skillful. Like I've literally seen him carry players on his back while he's running. He was an absolute joke.
He was a good player. I do remember him. In terms of what you're doing now, then Jamal, what's going on?
So I'm player under 23s coach at Colchester. So obviously, like last year, like I was at Stevenage. Didn't play much, obviously with my age and all the rest of it. Didn't see eye to eye the most with the manager, but like I said, that's football. And coming to the end of my career, I was just happy that like I turned 37 last month, that I'm still registered as a professional footballer. So for me, that's like another achievement, which is like I hold myself in high regard, like being able to do. I've seen so many players that are better than me that have fallen by the wayside, and for me to still be in the game and still be regarded as a player, although I'm transitioning now into a coach, is a proud moment for me. But yeah, like at Colchester, it's been an interesting year for me. It's been, people think that because I've had a 20-year playing career that you automatically become a good coach, and I can tell you that's not the case. And it's very daunting, and I've spoken to a lot of ex-players and like well known as well, and heard their stories, and that like their stories are the same, that when you do transition from from playing into coaching, it is daunting, and you got to find that coach's voice, and you got to find a lot of confidence to deliver a session. But it's been good.
Yeah. Did you play for Colchester's under 23s at any time this season? I'm sure I saw you down at Playford Road in Ipswich.
Yeah. No, I didn't. Yeah, at the training ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. I played left back in that game.
Yeah, I do remember. I was saying to my mate, he's a bit shifty, that left back. He's getting up and down there. Who's he?
Yeah. So like my role is obviously I think Brighton are doing it as well. I don't know if you know Andrew Crofts. He's gone in and doing the same role there. I think it's good for the youngsters to see players that are coming out of playing and transitioning over to coaching, but can obviously still do a bit and just set examples. And that's what it's been all about for me. Just obviously I could have potentially squeezed another year out of somebody and whatever, but like for me, I want to, like it's that longevity. What am I going to be doing in 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Like hopefully it's coaching, and I thought this was the perfect opportunity for me to start my journey, and helping the under 23s this year has been fantastic, and hopefully they see it as that me coming into building and helping has been good. But for me, it's been great, and yeah, I've had to lace up my boots a good few times this year.
Yeah, it's a great concept. Like I've never really thought of it like that, and to help the players out, it must be good. And Colchester have got some good youngsters on their books. I know that. I've seen it, firsthand. But in terms of what you bring to them, are you going to be honest with them and say, look, if you're not getting any football, go out and get some experience elsewhere. Try and improve the game, and then hopefully it might pan out for you. Is that what you're passing on?
Do you know what? It's everything I've said, I feel like I'm contradicting myself now, because obviously being a part of the coaching staff and being an under 23s coach, you want all your best players playing for you in the under 23s, because we're a Cat 2 side, and like we play a lot of the big teams, like we played Crystal Palace, and they were streets apart, like in terms of quality and all the rest of it. And a lot of our boys are out on loan and trying to get first team experience. But obviously I want them in the building playing for me, because we want to compete and be seen to be competing. But for them, it's a little bit different as well. Obviously, when I was at Charlton, that was in the Premier League, so my fall was a lot shorter. I was obviously going to Leyton Orient, Chesterfield, Wimbledon, whereas they're going to non-league clubs. So it's been a different experience for me, trying to accept and understand the benefits that they're going to get from going to those non-league teams and all the rest of it. But I suppose playing first team men's football, there's nothing better for them.
Just touching upon your coaching career there. This is essentially like a new chapter for you, really. So it's like, you've had the chapter as a player, and then obviously being the chapter of the coaching career now. So what's your sort of aspirations for coaching, and then potentially maybe management in the future? I mean, what's your plan there?
Well, obviously, like at the moment, I'm doing my badges. I'm on my A license right now, and listening to all these other coaches that have gone through the same sort of thing that I've gone through and all the rest of it. There's a big difference in being a coach and being a manager. At the moment, like I'd say, obviously I've only been like coaching for a year, just under a year. I would say that my biggest strength at the moment would definitely be management, man management. I think my man management skills are a lot better than my coaching skills on the grass. Although, like obviously, like you only get better by doing more sessions and being on the grass and delivering more sessions to the boys, which I've been doing. But definitely just understanding, having conversations with the boys, because when I was coming up and playing and all the rest of it, like everybody just wants to know where they stand and all the rest of it, and having an understanding what's the best way to get the best out of your players. And not every player is the same. Like people might come from different backgrounds and all the rest of it. So for me at the minute, I'd always say that right now my management skills are better, but I still need to improve on my coaching.
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe sort of moving into the future with potential sort of like a management role or something like that. I mean, is there anyone that's maybe influenced your career, and then sort of going forward from that you can sort of take pointers from, or anyone that you could actually potentially sort of contact in the future and be like, well, I need some help here or something like that, or maybe you've already done it, I don't know. But is there a particular individual that could potentially sort of help you out there?
Yeah, obviously I've got a lot of ex-teammates that I still stay in regular contact with. And just before the lockdown, actually, I went back to Bristol City and I shadowed Bristol City and Lee Johnson for a couple of days, which was fantastic. Lee and his assistant manager Jamie McAllister, I've played with them both at Bristol, and they're very good pals of mine. And it was brilliant to just go and see how he does things now and all the rest of it, and how he's made Bristol City evolve as a club. And what he's done is nothing short of remarkable. And his strategies and his methods and everything, he's like, honestly, he's like a mini Pep. And like he will be one that I can see managing in the Prem one day very soon, because his ideas and his methods and what he wants to do and how he delivers to players is brilliant. It's very, very different and very unique.
First question, I saw this video on Twitter. All Sheffield United. You took about 3 players and crossed it into the box, and Connor Salmon's on the end, and he's absolutely spooned a chance. Did you ever forgive him for that chance, if you know the one I'm on about?
Yeah, I do. I got sent it as well the other day. Samo was a great lad, good player. Just didn't work out for him at Sheffield United that season, but a great lad. And I've seen all the best strikers miss chances like that. So it's just, what do you do? These things happen, and obviously because he was having a tough time, the Sheffield fans are very unforgiving. Great fan base, great sets of fans. They're unbelievably passionate. But that was a tough time for him. But yeah, I do remember that chance missed.
So you're such a humble, nice guy. Like I know a lot of wingers would have just absolutely ripped into pieces, but nice humble answer there. So the last final question, and we ask every guest this: we're trying to source this one player. He's like yourself, played for many different clubs, but we're finding, Tux is on recruitment. Has he got in contact with yourself? We're struggling to get a hold of him. Have you ever played with, or do you know, Dele Adebola?
No, I just missed him at Bristol City.
No.
Just missed him, but I might have. I was at Bristol with Marvin Elliott, who I know was good friends with him, and I'm very good pals with Dexter Blackstock, who was with him at Notts Forest. So I can ask the question for you.
So we're struggling to get hold of him. We
We
really
may have
are.
found our link, boys. We may have found our link. I can go
Yeah,
with
leave
that.
it. Leave it with me. I can't promise anything, but I'll put the question out there and I'll see what gets back to me.
That's brilliant, Jamal. Well, look, mate, thanks for coming on tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. All the best in your coaching career, and just take care, all right, mate?
No,
Good luck,
top
mate.
man, guys. Thank you. Cheers.